कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः.
So these are the seat of the desire. Indriyas, the senses, the mind and the intelligence. That is what we have shown there. The seat of the desire is the senses, the mind and the intelligence. So to treat at that level, at this level, Bhagavad Gita suggests, prescribes various sadhanas. At least 4 we will discuss here. The 4 fundamental sadhanas prescribed by Bhagavad Gita, they are all working on the senses, mind and intelligence to purify them. Once they are purified, then the first step where the ignorance was to be dealt with by Kevala Jnana Nishtha, that ignorance also can be dealt with by a combination of the interactive sadhana as well as meditative sadhana. By that combination, we will finally arrive at the truth and also the complete divinization of our entire life. Now here the 4 methods suggested in Bhagavad Gita are, first is the Samatva attitude. In fact, as I said, this Samatva yoga is the fundamental yoga of Bhagavad Gita. That is the Karma yoga of Bhagavad Gita. It is not exactly Karma yoga as it is said here, that Karma becomes yoga only when we take to the yoga attitude. Otherwise, however much karma we do, it will not be yoga, it will only produce bandhana. Karma, when it is done with the samatva vision, with the evenness of the mind, then only it purifies our mind, it takes us to liberation. So samatva yoga is the fundamental yoga of Bhagavad Gita. And then it speaks about the jajna vision, as I discussed in the beginning, that this yajna vision, this is another revolutionary concept of Bhagavad Gita. The ritualistic yajna has been taken to a universal dimension, where anything happening in the universe, anything happening in nature, it is conceived as the yajna of the universal Lord. And we being part of the nature, our body, mind, personality, body, mind, intelligence, personality, being part of the nature, whatever we do with this body, mind, intelligence, personality, that is also a small little bit of contribution offering into that universal yajna of the universal Lord. This yajna vision will free us of all the bondages which otherwise the karmas produce. Look into the diagram. I have given the reference to Shloka 3.9, that is 3rd chapter, 9th verse. Krishna is saying, Yajñārthāt karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. He says that Yajñārthāt karmanaha anyatra lokaha ayam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. O Kaunteya, O Arjuna, do all the karma, make all your karma as yajna, do it with mukta sangha attitude, that is freed of sangha, do it as yajna. If it is done with the yajna attitude, then it liberates, but otherwise anything done without this yajna attitude, it becomes karma bandhana, it produces bondage. Because when we think that this body, mind, intelligence, personality is a part of nature, the whole prakriti, the nature with its 3 gunas is functioning through my body, mind, personality also. And in that process, whatever this body, mind, personality is doing, it is an offering into the universal yajna of the Lord. So we are not doing anything for any selfish motive, selfish constricted aim. So it becomes a natural work, a sahaja karma, and it liberates us every moment. Every time we try to do things with a selfish motive, we have to replace that selfishness with a comprehensive universal idea of the Jajna Bhavana. This Jajna Bhavana has to be brought into our mind. And when we do it with Jajna Bhavana, then and there this constriction will be released. Our mind will expand. We will feel the release from our sangha, from our stress, from whatever selfishness, constriction is always pressing us, stressing us, making us small. We will feel that the moment we bring in the Yajna Bhavana, we will feel the release from that. So like that, every step of our all action, not only action, in our thoughts also these have to be incorporated. Whenever we bring in the Samatva attitude, whenever we bring in the Yajna attitude, we will become liberated. We will become more and more liberated, more and more and more liberated. Finally, we will become like the sky or even beyond. Now the third sadhana he has prescribed, that is the Gunatita level. He said, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna. That is the Gunatita level. Normally the gunas are functioning to our body, mind, personality. Looking at them as that it is a nature's part of the nature, working by nature. I am not touched by them, I am not tainted by them at all. I remain aloof, above all, whatever is being done in the Gunatita level. I said the other day that to go beyond the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, all the three gunas, and I said the final, how to get rid of the bondage created by Sattva Guna. I said that it is through non-expectation, nirapekshata, by becoming nirapeksha, not expecting anything from anywhere, from anybody in the world. If we can become nirapeksha like that, then he has said that even Bhagavan follows such a muni, so that the Bhagavan can purify himself with the dust of his feet. Nirapeksham munim shantam nirvairam samadarshanam anubrajamyaham nityam puyet yangri renubhihi. So this Gunatita or Samatva or Yajna vision, they all take us to surrender. What is this surrender? We come to know that there is nothing to surrender. The knowledge finally dawns in us. We come to know that we are already surrendered, there is nothing to be surrendered. It is all the Prakriti is, the whole nature is playing. Only we are thinking that I am the Karta, I am the Bhokta. So that brings in the ego, which takes us away from the free, harmonious life, which is in harmony with the universal harmony, universal underlying the universal law. By surrendering our ego, by surrendering our desires, we become in tune with the infinitude. That is in fact this surrender, it is not only practicing surrender, but through Samatva, through Yajna vision, through Gunatita level, through all these things, all of them take us to this final goal of surrender, where we know that everything is being done on the consciousness. The whole universe is appearing on the consciousness, but the consciousness which I am is never tainted, never affected, never touched by any change at all. So these are the four sadhanas mainly in Bhagavad Gita. There are others also, but these are the main fundamental sadhanas which we will have to apply on the senses, mind and intelligence. They are true of the sense attraction and repulsion, mental attraction and repulsion, and also intelligential attraction and repulsion. When we apply these sadhanas to all these faculties, then we slowly start discovering the desireless action. What is the meaning of desireless action? We always think, many people ask that how can we do anything without desire? The desire is the motivating factor for anything. No, it is not so. Every action, they are no longer called karma, of course. Whenever they are not motivated by desire, they are not called karma anymore. They become sahaja. Just like the flower is blossoming, the plants are growing, the earth is going around the sun, the moon is going around the earth, as the whole nature is remaining tremendously active without having any desire. like that. I, being a part of this universe, we will also do whatever capacity we have, whatever will, mental power, intelligential power, bodily power we have, depending on the need of the circumstances, we will also remain active in the life, but not thinking ever that I am the Karta, I am the Bhokta. So the moment we start applying these four sadhanas on the senses, mind and intelligence, the seat of desires, we start discovering what is the meaning of this desireless action, what is the meaning of this sahaja karma. And as we grow in that, the ego gradually dissolves, gets sublimated, and what results is prasada. Bhagavad Gita says, prasadam adhigacchati. This sublimation of ego desires, prasada, finally leads us to the self-experience. This prasada leads us to the self-experience. In the diagram it is shown that this self-experience, that is Atma Sakshatkara, through the maturation of knowledge and purity, it leads to the final self-realization. The knowledge of the self becomes completely actualized. By that, what happens? Our all actions, the whole life gets divinized, all the actions gets divinized. Now this is the final goal, but in between we have shown the cycle. That is how the cycle of liberation works, that the desireless action that sublimates the ego brings in prasada, more and more prasada comes, the self-experience comes. It helps to treat the senses, mind and intelligence, because the self-experience is such that it completely sublimates the senses, mind and ego and intelligence also. That is what he says, param drishtva nivartate, vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam. The rasa doesn't go, but rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. When we see the real nature of ourselves, the real identity, then it has a complete sublimating, calming effect on all our faculties. So that by that the senses, mind and intelligence, they grow in sublimity, they grow in purity, they get expanded, becomes more and more unfragmented, unselfish. And that is how the ego gets more and more sublimated, and this sublimation helps us to become purer, and the self-experience gets deepened. Finally, we are getting released to this real universal identity where all our life, all our actions becomes divinized. Now, this is what the yoga is, and primarily after Krishna introduced this Samatva Yoga, in 6th chapter, 33rd verse, Arjuna is saying, Yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram. Yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat sthitim sthiram. He says that, O Krishna, you have spoken so well about this Samatva Yoga, but you have spoken it from your transcendental mindset, which is already existing, which is established in this Samatva. I have not been able to grasp it because my mind is chanchala, my mind is restless. Because of the restlessness of our mind, I am not able to grasp. Mark my point. Not that he has not understood what Krishna spoke. He has understood what Krishna meant by Samatva. But he understands also that this Samatva is a thing which is not just to be understood. It has to become a reality for me. It has to be realized. It has to become actualized. So Arjuna was a good seeker in that he was everything, he was introspective about everything. That, well, Krishna is saying that, I understand, but where is that Samatva? What does it mean when the mind attains this samatva? So he says that because of my restlessness of my mind, O Krishna, I have not been able to understand I have not been able to realize this samatva. What does it mean? So Krishna consoles him, saying that asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. He consoles Arjuna saying that there is no doubt, Arjuna, that the mind is very difficult to bridle. It is chanchala, it is restless for everybody, not only for you. Because you have been meditating on everything worldly. You have been meditating on the war, how to win over the kingdom. How can the mind suddenly become quiescent? It is impossible. So don't worry that the mind is restless now. But there is a way. It can be brought to this level where you will understand what this samatva means. What are the ways? These hints at the things in Bhagavad Gita which have to be seen with great interest and attention. See how clearly he has meant the two sadhanas. You should not miss these points. He says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. The mind has to be brought under your guidance, your control. It will behave as you want. By what process? By abhyasa and vairagya. These are the two methods, abhyasa and vairagya. And we have to go into the details of abhyasa as well as vairagya. In a way we can say this vairagya is, as I discussed earlier, that centripetal and centrifugal force. The whole world, the external variegated world of infinite variety, through its infinite kinds of pulls and pushes, they are pulling us, attracting us and also repelling us. That is fragmenting our mind. So this is the centrifugal force always pulling our mind. This centrifugal force increases by more and more sangha. The more and more vishaya dhyana, the more and more we think about the world, we develop the sangha. This sangha clinging itself means this centrifugal force, this strengthening of this centrifugal force which is taking our mind outward. So vairagya is the cultivation of viraga. Raga, I said, is color. We are always applying a color into the world, what we are seeing. We are always applying the color of likes and dislikes, me and mine, and that is why we are not able to see the world as it is. So vairagya means viraga, that means removing that color so that we see the world as it is and we see ourselves also as we are. So it is the impersonal vision. Vairagya means cultivating an impersonal vision. In other words, it is actually loosening the centrifugal force, relaxing the centrifugal force. More and more cultivation of vairagya means the mind will not run always, it will not get affected by the outward situations. Because of a clinging, the mind is getting affected. Otherwise there could be lot of trouble, there could be either plus or minus, whatever the situation is, one can course through the situations without getting affected at all. That is the fundamental purpose of spirituality. So this vairagya is a fundamental point in spirituality. It is not leaving the household and going into the forest and sitting in meditation as we think. It's not at all so. Vairagya is an inner coordinate. We have to develop this impersonality, that the sangha to everything goes. That always the world is pulling us out from our central core, from our anchor, from our real identity. That to reduce the pull is cultivating vairagya, so that we always can remain anchored in our real identity, anchored to our core identity, so that the outer attractions and repulsions will not throw us outward at all. So vairagya means actually reducing the outward pull, the centrifugal force. And what is the abhyasa? By more and more abhyasa, we are generating the centripetal force, which will bring us, which will help us get anchored to our central identity. So one is to reduce the centrifugal force, another is to enhance the centripetal force. This abhyasa can be of two kinds. One can be interactional, another can be non-interactional. Non-interactional abhyasa means meditation, contemplation, which the ultimate is samadhi. Samadhi also can be abhyasa, samadhi abhyasa, that to practice samadhi. So the meditative, contemplative life and samadhi, those hours, meditative hours, contemplative hours, and the hours spent in samadhi, they will bring us back to the source, bring us back to the anchor. But it is done in a state when we are away from the worldly interactions. It is a non-interactive sadhana. So abhyasa can be non-interactive when it is practicing meditation, contemplation, samadhi. The abhyasa can be interactional also. That means when we are involved in the interactions, then also we have to establish truth in every interaction with the world. That means the whole world for us should become Brahman. The whole world is appearing in the Brahman. Here all the four sadhanas we have just now discussed, they all will give us the support for this interactional abhyasa. They are the abhyasas to be practiced. That is practicing the yajna bhavana, practicing the samatva bhavana, practicing surrender, that means acceptance of everything, and practicing to remain always unbound by the work of the gunas, by the play of the gunas, remaining gunatita. These are the sadhanas which are to be pursued as abhyasa, as practice throughout our interactional life. As we practice it more and more, it is actually, we call it the establishing Brahman or the truth in the variegated world, that everything we interact with, every situation we interact with, they become Brahman and Brahman alone. So one is to get into ourself and get fused into the Nirguna Brahman or our real identity. Another is knowing that identity, establishing that identity in everything in the world, in the external world. That means one is knowing the self, another is establishing the self in the various appearance of the world. The whole universe is appearing in that self, in that consciousness, in that Brahman alone. So these two together will constitute the total abhyasa Bhagavad Gita is talking about, both interactional abhyasa and non-interactional abhyasa. And these two will help each other. We cannot succeed in one suddenly. As we progress in the non-interactional sadhana, in having more and more meditational success, that meditational memory will help us to remember the sadhana during the interactional period. And as we progress in the interactional sadhana, the meditation will become more and more facile. The two together will take us to the final goal, where the whole world will become Brahman and Brahman alone. So Krishna says in verse 2.64, Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavashair vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavashair vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishthate. He says that one who is freed of this ragadvesha, this constant clinging to what one likes and hating what one dislikes, if we are freed of this clinging, then such a person, even if he moves in the whole world with his sense organs, he interacts, that means he interacts with the whole world. Even then, he never loses his anchor. Atmavashyehi, vidheya atma. It is not a control from outside that he is applying to his senses. Vidheya atma, he is guided by his atma. He is guided by the inner voice, by the core identity. Atmavashyehi, he is completely in harmony with his real identity. He remains anchored to his real identity even when he interacts with the whole world.